Okay, I'm making this short video just as a general rundown of the tools you'll need for making one of these guys. This is a nurgling that is to be shot out of a puss cannon. So this little guy normally lives, get on there. So this little guy normally lives on the end of this puss cannon, quite happily, like that. So this is more just a rundown of the tools you'll need to be able to make one of these guys. So you'll need some kind of two-part epoxy. You can either go for an expensive brand like this, which this is Z-epoxy. You can order it pretty much anywhere really, or your general Poundland or dollar store cheap two-part epoxy, comes in a tube, quick and easy. You'll need something to mix the epoxy. I bought this big stack of wooden craft lolly sticks from the pound shop as well. They work quite well. Just literally need one to mix the epoxy and the colour pigment. Speaking of which, the colour pigment, I've already got the epoxy in here. Don't know if you can see it, there we go. So I've got A and B in there, and the coloured dye, which is literally just ground up chalk pastels, like the Artist brand. You can also use crushed raw watercolour powder in order to make this effect as well, which this colour will yield the same effect as the little nurgling being shot out of the Plague Hulk's gun, which is that one there. To start off with, if you want it to be firing a nurgling, you'll need to mount your nurgling onto a piece of core material. In my case, this one is a piece of brass rod. So that's just basically make sure that he stays there and does not move. You can either drill a hole through him or just glue him on like I have. I've just glued it onto his ass cheek. If you're making just general web, like splatter, fanned out effect goo, you can use 1.5mm wire, which is what I've started to do with this one. Which brings me on to the next thing that you'll be needing, which is a glue gun. When you do this effect, you do not want to be having the glue gun switched on. Mine's currently off at the moment and cooling down. You don't want this to be runny, you want this to sort of be quite thick out of the end of the glue gun. This will probably need heating up again because it has been sitting for a while. But the general idea is to just go up and down the wire until you've completely covered the wire with hot glue. So you basically want no wire actually to be seen on the outside. It's okay to have it near the surface, but you ideally don't want it anywhere near the outside of the actual piece, because otherwise when you go to put the epoxy on, it'll show through and it looks a bit weird. Another thing as well, if you're doing this kind of effect, I've branched this off with like 3 pieces of wire. You might want to get just a jar of water, just so you can dip this in every so often, or else the parts will shift a bit too much. But yeah, that's sort of the general gist of how you do that one. Now, with the one that I did, he's sort of, the nurgling is sort of sticky, as if he's just been fired. So I'm going to see if I can demonstrate this whilst putting the camera down. But the general idea for what you want to do is when the glue gun's not quite so hot, because otherwise you end up melting the plastic for the miniature you're using, but you're just basically trying to build up from the nurgling and bring it back. So you just more or less just start off with his back, cling it to wherever you want, and just drag it back to the centre of the rod. If you want a little bit on his arms, then stick it to his arms, pull it back into the centre of the model, just because otherwise if you try dragging it all the way back, it tends to droop a bit. You can always build it up and then remove material. It's quite hard to clean it up though if you screw it up. And this is another thing as well, when you get you might not pick it up very well on the camera, but there's little bits of webbing, which is actually another thing that you'll probably want to use, is a stick lighter or a barbecue lighter, just to lick the surface of the glue, just to smooth it out a bit. Pretty much when you're happy with however you do this guy, So I'm pretty much ready to go on this piece because this is about as thick as I want this really. You'll then mix your epoxy. You don't need a lot of the powder pigment. You probably need about as much as your little fingernail to do it. Just when you come to do it, the best way I find to mix it to avoid lumps is to actually shake it around in the pot, like put your A and B side separately and just let the powder fall over it until the powder is all clung to the part A and part B of the epoxy like it has here, because it gives you a cleaner mix. Once you've fully mixed all your epoxy in, like I say, it'll all depend on the work time for your epoxy, but you'll have a limited amount of time before you're actually able to do this. So you'll have literally, once you've mixed this, you need to have everything ready, because there's no second guessing yourself really with this stuff. If you need to do it in parts, do it in parts. When I did that nurgling, I actually did about 5 coats over the whole thing, starting from the nurgling and working my way back. I'll say that's about done. So yeah, it's quite a nice dark green, like nurgle pessy green. I got these cheap brushes as well. I bought a pack of about 120 of these on eBay for about £12, so they last ages, because there's just an endless supply of the things. They literally just, ooh, I've dripped that everywhere now, but just literally brush it on the surface. You'll probably have to do about 2 or 3 coats if you want it thick, but yeah, you'd just more or less paint it on the surface. If you feel it's not dark enough, you can always just add more pigment. If you still feel it's not dark enough, you'll want to add a tiny, and I mean a tiny amount of black. Like literally, it's very easy to accidentally go overboard with it. But yeah, you're just basically brushing this on until you've either your epoxy starts to set, which once it starts to become tacky or hard and you feel like you're struggling to brush it, that's a good sign for you to stop. Don't try and like think, oh, I've got still got loads in here, I'll just try and get it on there, because the last thing you want to do is accidentally epoxy your paintbrush to the piece that you've just made. Because trust me, I've already done that once already, and it is not a fun process to try and fix. But I mean, even just after like a first coat, that doesn't look too bad. You can, if you don't want to make this with the wire in it, if you get like baking paper and lay some thin strips of epoxy out, or even just fill a couple of straws up with some just clear epoxy, just like general drinking straws, just pump some epoxy through it, and let that harden. You can also use that as just cores for running up through this, or if you've got some sort of like clear plastic, you can actually probably even get away with using flight stands for stuff like towel sniper drones, but it's more on your preference. But after one coat, I think I'll probably put about 2 coats on this, because I don't want it to be as dark as the other one, because the other one actually you can't see through it. But yeah, I'd say that doesn't look half bad. But yeah, just build up the layers. If you feel one product doesn't work, another thing you can use as well is nail salon nail pigments, but you want the non-metallic kind. They actually have quite a strong colour in them, because they're actually made to be mixed in with epoxies, so they'd probably be a better bet. Alright, so I hope that's helped. This video has run on a bit longer than I thought, but hope this helps.